Dr. Macklin?
Yes,
You're
sir.
muted.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for doing the equity stuff. And you may get a phone call if you don't mind. From a Senator Belt, B-E-L-T, Christopher Belt.
Okay.
He is the head of the Illinois Senate Subcommittee on Education.
Okay.
He is very, very interested in equity as
Great.
it relates, especially in Illinois, because right now Chicago is a fiasco on this. At least that's his terms, not mine. And I shared that with him.
Great. Greatly appreciate it. I look forward to the call. I look forward to having the call. I think that anytime that we can have conversations about educational equity or equity in general, it's good to have those conversations. So I appreciate that, Dr. Cuneo.
Thank you for your work. Where do we want to start on this?
Is someone trying to speak?
Yes, we're all in the same room. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Yes, it just.
Okay. Hey, Dr. Cuneo, I wanted to let you know that we are live now. So we're
All
live
right.
streaming this meeting for the
Okay.
public to view.
All right. I don't believe we need to have introduction. Do we need, since it's live, I don't think we need to have an opening as such on this meeting. It's not a formal meeting. Do we?
No, it's a subcommittee, so I don't believe we do. We haven't in the past.
No. Which one do we want to start with?
I do not have a preference. Do you?
How about telework?
Perfect.
That is GBAD.
GBAD. So this was a proposed policy from the MSBA based on the virtual work that was done with students and for staff. And so taking their proposed policy that I have marked that up based on the recommendations that I have as far as adoption of the policy. So I don't know, do you want me to provide further explanation or do you have questions? Basically, this policy would be that telework would only be utilized in the case of a district-approved worksite closure, and that we would not be making telework an option for employees to select in lieu of being in person with students.
Great. I was going to make it just a couple. Does anybody else have anything they want to do before I start talking on this one?
I'd like an explanation of what telework really is.
Telework is working from home
Okay.
or another district-approved work site. Because it says in the top, for the purposes of this policy, telework is defined as a flexible work arrangement where employees perform their job duties from home or another district-approved work site.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have that information in front of me, so
Oh, you don't have the policy in front of you?
I don't remember getting that. Was that something that we
I
had?
gave you a file folder at the board meeting, but I don't know if Amy, if you can share your screen and we can put the policies up.
I have it shared. Are you able to see it?
I am not able to see your screen. I don't know if others are.
I can't see it.
Oh, because I'm not plugged in.
Oh, okay.
I think Curtis, you said you think you know where that folder is. You have it.
I'm looking through the folder that I bought home.
Mhm.
Executive session, closing.
Amy, you're the host.
Go ahead on. I'll
It doesn't
find
matter. I don't think is it?
The only question I had on this, okay,
Yes.
was on the last paragraph on page 1.
Give Wendy Pendergrass.
When telework is necessary, the district will provide employees with equipment and reasonable supports to assist with the transmission. When telework is considered an essential function of an employee's position, an employee may be disciplined or terminated for refusing to work remotely, or may be required to use paid leave days when available. My question was, when you read through this whole thing, what happens, because now telework goes through all the school, goes instead of having what we call before snow days or inclement weather, correct?
Correct.
What happens if I have a parent an employee who is a parent and their children are off school for the day? How are they going to work then? Or do they have to figure out a way to deal with that?
I guess the way that it functioned last spring and in this fall, when staff were teaching and working virtually, that they made arrangements to be able to perform their job from their work location, whether that from home. And if they were unable to do so for the day or multiple days, then they requested PTO time, or if it was an extended time, they requested a leave of absence.
I could see where that happened in COVID. I was just thinking about what happens during a snow day when all of a sudden you have no time ahead of time and the school cancels at 7:30 in the morning. What do we do then? And I'm not saying they should cancel early in the morning, but a lot of times.
I don't believe that every snow day will be a virtual day, that we would only move into that situation if we exhausted all of the snow days that are built into the calendar.
Okay.
Like this year, we did not. If we would have gotten to the point that we used the last day, the district's plan was to formally communicate with all employees in the district that we had exhausted our inclement weather days and that any future days would be virtual days, and to please plan accordingly. And I believe that that would be the same procedure that the district would implement in the future.
Okay, so we would not have to go, individuals would not have to go to telework if it is just a quote, normal snow day and we've only had like 1 or 2 in the year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That the
That's
district.
not, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, but that's not what the policy says.
Right. The calendar that was approved by the board on Tuesday evening for the next 3 years, all 3 years had built-in snow days that we can take without having to do any type of virtual work.
Okay, so in that, do we say that there will not be telework during a snow day if it is still within our number of snow days allowed?
So we could, I see what you're requesting. So
Yeah,
some
my
language
problem
in
is
there to, go ahead.
Yeah, my problem was, you know, we haven't had a snow day. All of a sudden it's January. We have 1 snow day. We've got snow days on the books. Is that a telework day? This says it is. Because it says, if the district determines that it must close, it's telework. So shouldn't we have something that says beyond the number of snow days?
Yes, I can
Okay.
work on something to clarify that language.
If we could add that to that, I'm happy with everything else in this. Is everybody else?
Yeah, that makes sense in reference to the snow date information. Just as a matter of note, how many have we had of teleworks in past?
Well, as of March the 18th of last year, we finished the school year virtual. And we started this school year until I believe October 10th, but I don't have that date in front of me, but I don't know if October 10th is the day we told staff they were going to be coming back or the date we told them to come back. I don't know if anyone else remembers.
Well, my question was not necessarily, I realized that COVID brought in this situation much more. So I guess I should have said, prior to our having to deal with COVID, how many telework dates have we found ourselves having?
None.
Okay.
And the year before, or was it 2 years before, we did exceed the number of snow days. We had that really crazy year. But last year, but usually we never exceed that number. So I just wanted to have that put in just in case something happens.
Understandable.
Okay. Let's finish the other
The only-
policies before we go to the regs. Wait,
I just had a really quick comment, and it's, I think it'll apply to some others as well. In some of these policies, the school district is referred to as special school district, and others, it's the special school district, St. Louis County.
Mhm.
And I think there were a couple where it wasn't always consistent. So I just wanted to ask, what's our preferred, name here for these policies, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters, but I agree with you. It should be consistent.
It should be consistent. I think in the ones that are recommendations from MSBA, they refer to it as Special School District of St. Louis County because that's how they input the information. So I can make sure that that's consistent language of just special school district.
How about if we go to the GBAA next,
Yes,
since that's our only other, the others are regs.
right. So the need to adjust GBAA, primarily the primary changes are in the reg, but in the overall policy of GBAA, with the elimination of athletics from North Tech, the district now has no athletic programs. So that's why our recommendation is to remove any reference to athletics. So the only change in GBAA is removing the reference to athletic ticket taking events and using another appropriate example of extra duty, that would be occasional or sporadic, which would be supervising students in the event of late buses. I believe what's on the screen is GBAA R2.
Okay.
What I would recommend on GBAA,
Yes, sir.
last paragraph again,
Mhm,
where we cut out such as taking tickets in events.
mhm.
I suggest we leave in such as supervising students in the event.
Yes, thank you.
I was either gonna say either that or put an extra comment in there, but no, that's, if you just put in such as, I think everything.
I got carried away with my strike through, clearly.
Know that feeling quite well. Anybody else have any questions on this one? I'm moving right along.
With the in the elimination, and the only thing I guess concerned about is in eliminating the sports programs, we do have the ability, if in fact that we have an undertaking, again, we can restore with DESE our abilities to have a sports program. And the
My
reason why-
understanding is with the Missouri Misha, that we would have to go through them. And if we chose to do that as a district and received the approval to do that for athletics, we could go back into this policy and make adjustments as necessary to be inclusive of athletic extra duty stipends.
Okay.
But I would agree that we need to do that, but I think this covers us even if we didn't, because for occasional or sporadic extra duties.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one?
Are we going to go through the regulations as well, or are we?
Mhm.
Yes.
Then I can wait.
Which regulation would you like to start with, Dr. Cuneo?
Just GBAA R1, just as a wordsmith, since we're talking about the wordsmithing, is page 3.
Okay.
Under item 2, it says the administrator assigning the extra duty will submit a completed miscellaneous pay form to the Human Resources Department for submission to the board for approval. And I was going to suggest maybe one of those could be provided.
I also had just a comment. Number 6 on that same page. Employees working ESY will be submitted as a group for board approval as soon as possible and prior to performing the work. Is that always possible? It hasn't been in the past. That's why I know we're trying to get it all done and
Right. I added that language based on the board's request that all miscellaneous pay be approved prior to the work being performed, but that is language that we could adjust.
the only reason why I'm saying that is there could be a time when you need somebody right away and we don't have them.
So maybe, except
What
in
if
the
we said-
case of emergency,
Yes, and then as soon as possible. It's just that there are times, it just seems that many times we approve those ESYs way beyond the time. And I know that's not what anybody likes, but it would be good if it happened. So, you know, it would be good if we could do that, but I'm sure there's times when we can't.
Mhm.
At least there's been times in the past where we couldn't. I didn't want somebody to try to work and then never get paid. They
we
would
would
not be
let that
happy.
happen.
They would not be happy.
No.
Anything else on that reg? How about GBCA reg? The one that we redid. Any questions on that from anyone?
Yeah, so that was one that I think at the very top said special school district, St. Louis. I was
Yeah.
in the, just, that's what led me to ask that question with the other.
Thank you, Dr. Asner. Yes.
And is this the one we have highlighted playing on a golf team?
Yep. So in the case of fundraising activities that we would allow playing on a golf team in the event of that is the adjustment that I made there.
I still have a question on this one. And it's the same one we got with the Board of Conflicts with the
Right.
board too. I still don't understand how one of the bonding agents can go down to MSBA and offer meals to everyone. Or Sodexo does that. And I don't think that has me determined that I want to use Sodexo or that bonding unit at all. But MSBA is the one who sponsors that. There's nothing in here. If we had a staff member, and then later when we get to the board part, I'm just curious, could we eat with them? If they pick up the tab, especially if you're talking, many times they do it for many times 50 to 100 people at a time.
Mhm.
And yet MSBA never addressed that. In fact, the way they wrote it, it said that we couldn't. And this one has that the only way that free meal could occur for a staff member would be as if their supervisor okayed it. That might be easier. What happens with well, we'll get to that with the board. That's still not addressed in this.
Okay.
And that's an MSBA sponsored event.
Right.
And I'm still
So
trying to
just
figure
so
The way the policy is written is if we're gonna play a game of golf or have a meal, the entire board needs to be aware of it and approve it. I think we still have to be really mindful of even creating the appearance of influence there.
Mhm.
But those are pretty clean cut. My problem with that, Dr. Asner, is prior to COVID, there used to be an annual meeting for Missouri School Board Associations. And during that time, either the bonding groups would come together and they would sponsor a cocktail hour, and they'd have hors d'oeuvres. Or the night before, what would happen is either the bonding agents or Sodexo or one of the food agents would pick up the tab for the meals for everybody. this tells me, and what would happen is all the board members would attend to that. At least usually the board members that would go, and whoever was from the school district would go. This says we can't, this doesn't address this. And in fact, it looks like you can't go. At least that's the way I read it. And here you would have to have the supervisor's approval. Later, when we get to that, such as, and that same wording is used when we talk to conflict of interest in the board, that would mean the board could never attend one of those. And yet all the other districts are attending that.
Right. What if we addressed it by adding the word individual at the start of number 9, individual employees, and then when we get to the board regulation, individual board members?
Well, so does that mean that if they give everybody a gift, it makes it okay? I mean,
Yeah, you're right, Dr.
I
Asner.
That's true.
ask the MSBA to reach out to them and ask them, you know, are they, again, this all happened before my time, but are they basically saying that those meals that they had before shouldn't be done going forward?
I can do that. I can reach out and ask them.
Yeah.
And then
MSBA
what response I get, I can forward on to
like
the members of the policy committee.
Yeah, MSBA needs
really
to figure out what they're doing with this.
Okay.
But I think, you know, I just think we have to be really careful about, you know, like I said, obviously, hopefully no influence at all, but even creating the appearance of it.
I agree. My problem is MSBA is not following their own policies, and they're actually sponsoring an event where they're
They might be
having,
getting us in trouble.
that just looks
Being
goofy.
conflict.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess what this is really is our policy. And I think we have to say, are we comfortable with this policy? Because I think it's important for us to know that, you know, there is that we don't have individuals or parts of the board. Now, you know, for when we do vendors and all those type of things, I think that this is really about that conflict of interest. Making sure, because I didn't go to that dinner and I wouldn't attend that dinner for that very reason, that if we are doing business with this vendor, it doesn't look, you know, that our policy says we shouldn't be doing things like having a dinner. Now, we have means to be able, when we go to these MSBA things, that we pay for our board meals. So I don't think it's necessary for us to have to go to vendor meals and stuff like that.
I also, as I'm looking at this, because this is about employees not accepting gifts from individual students, parents, or guardians, there's no monetary, you know, sort of. Yeah, I mean, I think we should add a dollar amount, because the truth is that, you know, my wife and I, we do like to give our kids' teachers a gift around the holidays.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's, and, you know, we're not trying to get any kind of undue influence. We're just trying to be thankful and appreciate our, you know, teachers' hard work. Same thing, you know, I think my son brought his teacher a shell he got or something at one point. Had no monetary value.
Right.
But he was, so I think those kinds of things I would not want to prohibit through board policy, because I don't, you know, at least I hope they don't create any undue influence.
I think if we had a dollar amount, it would make much more sense.
Yep.
And I think that the question also comes into back to Dr. Keenan's point, is really relates to conflict of interest. The monetary point, the gift card, whatever it may be, I believe as long as the conflict of interest isn't there, as long as that gift card, as Dr. Asner stated, is not a persuasion and changing of grades or of things like that, I think that that's the biggest piece, and that clears understanding by the employees here of the policy.
So perhaps we might, I mean, boy, now we're getting into, I guess, gray areas, but we might want to somehow define the gifts that are intended to, you know, create an undue influence, something like that. I'm not sure if there's a way to word that to distinguish what it is that we're trying to prohibit. Although again, a dollar amount goes a long way to doing that as well.
I really do like the dollar amount concept.
I do too. And I like Dr. Asner's point about gifts intended to create an undue influence, or we could add undue influence or advantage.
Yeah, and still put a dollar amount on it.
Oh, yes, yes, in addition to that.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dr. Asner, I'm having trouble hearing you, so I
No, go ahead.
apologize if I'm
Like, if you
talking over
specify
you.
No, and I think I apologize. We're doing the same thing. I think the issue is once we specify the whether it was intended to create undue influence or not, then we get into a situation where people will argue that point.
Mhm.
And that's going to be very, very hard to then decide if somebody's actually in violation of the policy or not, because they can always argue about their intent.
So I hear a definition maybe of undue
Dollar
influence.
amounts. Yeah, maybe just a dollar amount, and don't worry about the intention, because if I give my kid's teacher, a gift that's worth $1,000, I mean, doesn't really matter what I intended. They may
It looks
feel like I'm trying to. Yeah, it looks like I'm trying to influence, for grades or for special treatment, even if I wasn't. And I could say, well, I was just trying to be nice.
Right.
So I feel like the last time we discussed this regulation as a policy committee, our discussions were primarily focused in a couple of areas, number 9 being one of them. Can I assume that we're okay with the rest of the regulation and that we need to focus our continued work on number 9, or are there other areas that we also have questions or concerns about?
I'm confident with all the other changes that have been made.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with.
Okay, so when I bring this back next time, we'll bring it back and just focus on number 9.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, BBFA regulation.
Mhm.
Comments before I got somebody else have anything first? Okay, what I would like to do on this, then, I've got a couple comments. One, on this, can we reference this to the board manual? This is one the board should know immediately. And also the board conflict of, that clearly this has got to go to the board manual.
Mhm.
Second of all, on page 3, last one, statement of interest.
Mhm.
All right. We probably, at some point, we need to differentiate in that statement of interest. And later on, we talk about hiring individuals. I don't want us to get into a point where, Dr. Asner, like at the last meeting, you abstained on a vote because one of the members was a family member, I believe it was.
Yes.
Okay. Can we have something in this one? It says, if a board member has a substantial personal or private interest in a decision, that they have to write a written report. I mean, we later talk about how the individual abstains.
And
But I
hiring,
can see where
yes.
somebody would say, with the exception of hiring, there's
Okay.
and just put that in there because we address that later. And I don't want every
Yeah,
time.
it is a separate.
With
I
the
don't want-
exception of hiring.
I don't want every time that somebody has a relative that they have to write a letter.
No.
So, I mean, if we could have with the exception there, since we address that later in this thing.
Mhm.
My next one on this is the same thing we talked about before under gifts and gratuities on
Mhm.
page 4.
Yep.
We still got that same problem of
Yeah.
what we deal with MSBA. And we would, if we didn't do it, we may be the only district that didn't do it, because everybody else attends, and it's kind of a nice way to see everybody in a sit-down situation. And
So I wonder if part of the thing is this in excess of the amount established by the board. There we have an amount exception here. I'm on page 4 of,
gifts and gratuities.
right. So here we have in excess of the amount established by the board. I don't think that wording was there for the employers.
No, it wasn't.
And I think that is, I don't know if it's specifically addressed in here, but it is, I mean, it's that $500 amount usually, right? Which is still to me seems excessive, but yeah. But that may be why the MSBA was having those meetings, because every person's individual meal probably did not cost $500.
Exactly.
All right, if we would, under the gifts and gratuities on page 4, if somehow we, and I know that's a singular thing, but it happens every year that
Right.
they have that.
But that's actually, that is a good wording to include in the employee statement as well, just in
Yeah.
excess of the amount established by the board.
Right.
And that would-
Yeah, so if we say that we're putting it like $100,
Yeah.
not to exceed. And I say that because in some occasions, we will have our staff who are going to conferences, and then they have these same sponsored things where we might be purchasing a curriculum from a company, and that they brought somebody out for dinner during that time. And so if we put a dollar amount, it's not that this person is purchasing this curriculum based on the fact that they just got a meal. It's within that policy.
Yes.
Next, on that page 5, the second sentence in red, even when there is no financial gain involved, failure to keep information confidential violates board ethics. I recommend that we also reference the board ethics statement on that, on the policy,
Oh, okay.
just since we're talking about it, if somebody wanted to go take a look at it. And on the nepotism, boy, nepotism sounds like such a bad word always. But when you employ somebody who's a relative, it says at the end, the member need not leave the room, but will refrain from voting. Could we also have something on that says no letter needs to be sent, or no letter? It's just because we talked about it before, and I don't want to have somebody sit there and have to write a letter every time.
No.
Somebody's name comes up.
So did you want to change nepotism to employment of family?
Please.
Okay. I
Employment,
just
how
wanted to
about
make-
employment of family,
That's the-
of family
that's the legal
members?
term. I think that's a
Okay.
legal term.
Yeah.
And so,
Then let's keep
Yeah,
it.
we have to keep that in there.
Could we put something in parentheses behind nepotism?
I mean, do we?
I think we know what it is.
Nepotism
Let's keep
says
it
so.
legal.
It's just has such a pejorative concept.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but maybe we want to keep it.
Yes, I think it's clear.
Yeah, it's pretty
What's that
clear.
word?
It's just an ugly word.
It is.
Yeah.
It's an ugly thing.
All right. Does anyone else have anything else on the policies we looked at today?
Just page 6, again, I'll stop making this comment after this one, but again, we have that special school district of St. Louis County. Wording in there. It's throughout, I think. It's like a, word search and replace kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Did we decide if it's gonna say of St. Louis County or just special school district? Because our official name is the Special School District of St. Louis County.
My understanding is that at the bottom of each page of the policies, it lists the full name of the district, Special School District of St. Louis County, Missouri, and so that we refer to the district of Special School District in the contents. Amy, is that
Okay.
accurate?
Yes, that is.
That sounds perfect. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. I have one that I think we need to deal with right at least before our next meeting.
Okay,
Dr. Keenan, I had asked at that last meeting so that we would have that you would present the reorg chart that we had talked about and all this stuff, and we would vote on that. I realized that when I said that, I thought there had to be a policy on that. This GCPA is our policy on that.
yes.
And before we can hire new, on a reorg, the board has to say, has to officially approve the reorg. Otherwise, we can't modify the structure or the existing personnel positions. We can't hire new people for those jobs, nor can we let go people for those jobs, according to this policy. I knew I saw it, I had to find it. So we might want to put that reorg on hold until the board as a whole agrees to that. Otherwise, we're in violation of our policies. And I know that's kind of awkward, but that was that same thing that we had with Latoya. We got a policy in place, we got to follow it or change the policy.
Is this for the communications department?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And so what I'm
Yeah,
saying is, I'm not saying that the reorg is good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying that according to our policies, we have to approve those. We have to approve the reorganization first, especially if it means that it's going to be a reduction in staff or a change in positions. And then what we have to do.
I think those jobs may have been posted is what she just told me already.
The board approved the posting of the positions prior to the final approval of it.
We can't do that. I mean, the board did it, but that's not according to our policy. We're going to get stuck in the same thing that we had with the Latoya thing.
You mean the tree?
We can post it. We might want to delay the interviews, but we kind of have to wait until we approve the reorg and then to see who is, if there is a reduction in things. And since we're creating new personnel positions, we have to approve those positions before they can be posted, according to our policy. I changed the policy, and I believe this policy came about after the problems we had with the tech schools, if I remember right, in December 2019.
The policy states that the board has the sole authority to create new personnel positions and to modify or restructure existing personnel positions. But it doesn't specifically state that the structure has to be approved. So you're saying you're wanting to update that language?
No, it means that we have to, according to the way it is what we have to do on a reorganization, we have to approve it officially as the board first.
Okay.
And then if we're creating, then we can do whatever we want to do. But we have to, there has to be a vote on it first. And the vote has to be done by the board.
In the business meeting?
It could be in the business meeting.
It doesn't
or
specifically say that, but I don't think it's a bad idea to actually approve reorganizations before we approve positions. I think that's a good thing to do. Meaning, Dr. Cunha, I think your point is a very good point.
Yeah, I think we have to do that first.
Maybe we should say that in the policy.
I'm not disagreeing with any of the postings. I'm not disagreeing with any of the choices. That I'm not going to get into micromanaging. All I'm saying is our rules state that we got to do this first.
Okay.
It's the same thing with Latoya. She ended up getting the position. That was great. She clearly was the most qualified. All I'm saying is we either got to change our rules. I'm just saying, but once we have rules, we have to follow them. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to put that on a hold until we have a discussion on that. So
So the board did see the reorg, it just didn't vote on it.
We didn't vote on it. We have to vote on the plan per se, approve the plan. It can either be in closed meeting and then later approved in the open meeting or in the business meeting, or it can be just done in the business meeting and we can have whatever discussions about it there. Either way, it doesn't bother me. But if in fact individuals were let go or would be let go, or if we have new personnel positions, we have to approve that as a board.
Right.
First, before we can do it.
Yeah, and the board has been approving any new positions or any positions that have been posted.
Yeah,
So the board has-
I'm not debating the pros or cons of the reorg. I'm just saying we got to do it first. We got to approve it. We got to approve it at a meeting.
So we have that on for the agenda for next time.
Yeah, I had asked for it, and I thought there was a reason why. I knew that I had read something, so we looked to find a policy, and I had it distributed.
Great. All right, so that's clarifying the process. But what we did was we did provide that to the board, and then the board did see the positions, and any positions were posted. The board was okay with that, and at the same time, we'll make sure that we go through the proper channels of posting the org chart and approving that.
The board has to approve that really before we post them, according to the policy. I'm not saying, I know that makes it awkward. It makes it the same thing. It's the same goofiness we had with Latoya, but we kind of have to follow our rules. Or change the rules.
That's fine. That's a change in the rules. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a change in the process.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
But that clarifies it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
No, I would just say that Dr. Macklin and I spoke, and at our next meeting, we'll allocate some time for him to talk with the policy committee about his review of policies with the equity lens. So that'll be part of the agenda for our May meeting.
Thank you, Amy Schechter. I appreciate it.
And Dr. Macklin, you do not fit. I think if Senator Bell calls and speaks with you, you will find him very interesting. He is a very bright individual, which I don't say about most senators. And he also has his master's in business and in education. And he's written kid books. I mean, he's an interesting individual.
Good. I look forward to the conversation.
Yes. All right.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good weekend.